Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Trombley Express first ever vlog. Of course, here at the Sports Society Network, everyone here does either blogs or vlogs. Obviously, that's a video blog post based on something like that. So I've been meaning to get into it, and so I'm going to do my first one here. And this first one's going to be interesting because we're going to talk about why last night's episode of WWE Monday Night Raw was, I think, the worst under the Triple H era so far, and why I'm worried about his style or his head of creative as we go forward. So last night on Raw, there was a bit of an issue with the whole show in general. And that was, it felt like nothing happened. Let me explain. So for most of the matches, they either went 5 or 6 minutes and nothing really felt furthered. The Miz was the host of WrestleMania. Okay, cool. Logan Paul's going to show up next week. Okay. John Cena's going to show up next week. Okay, so is this an advert for just next week's episode of Raw? Or is this an episode of WWE TV in of itself? Because it just felt like this episode was an advert for next week's Raw, of just saying, hey, this episode doesn't really matter. Just go to next week's episode and wait till see all the big stuff happens there with Cena and Logan Paul, and Cody and Roman are going to do something on there. Sami Zayn might be back. This just felt like a very odd episode of Raw, and it felt like a very disorganized episode of Raw. And there's 3 main problems going into this episode that I think need to be addressed. 1, if you aren't part of the Bloodline storyline, you are doing nothing. Tell me, seriously, if anyone could say what happened on this episode of Raw that didn't involve the Bloodline. You had the opening promo, and then the KO, and then the Street Profits, Jimmy Uso, Solo Sikoa match. And then you had the KO run-in. And then everything else was inconsequential to furthering a WrestleMania storyline. Nothing happened on this episode that we weren't already at last week. So if you weren't part of the Bloodline, you have nothing going on. We still don't know what Gunther's doing with his Intercontinental Championship. We have no idea really what's going on between Bobby Lashley and Bray Wyatt. They just started their feud, I guess. And both women's title matches are just That brings me to my second point. Rhea Ripley is feuding with Charlotte Flair. Cody Rhodes is feuding with Roman Reigns. Dominic Mysterio is feuding with his father, Rey Mysterio. And you've got Bobby Lashley feuding with Bray Wyatt. That is 4 Raw feuds that are against SmackDown superstars. And the SmackDown superstars don't appear on Raw. So you have these Raw superstars trying to further feuds, but they can't because their opponents in the feuds aren't there. Now, SmackDown's going to be great this Friday because Cody's going to be there to confront Roman. Rhea's going to have a match to hype up her match with Charlotte. You're going to have probably Bobby Lashley go there to confront Bray Wyatt. But then Raw suffers so much because all of your top stars can't further their feuds with their SmackDown counterparts because the SmackDown people can't show up on Raw. It's a huge problem that needs to be solved after you go past WrestleMania because this WrestleMania build is being cursed by this problem. It's really, really being hurt by this. And 3, inconsistent storytelling outside of the Bloodline. Here's what I mean. You go to the Elimination Chamber match and you had Asuka look like an absolute monster in that match. She bulldozed her way through everybody, almost everybody. She looked like a killer that could easily take Bianca Belair's Raw Women's Championship. You then have her last night get dominated for 5 minutes by Carmella. Asuka then gets 1 reversal and makes Carmella immediately tap out. So it's not working because let's say Bianca Belair, because now it was announced next week that Bianca Belair is going to take on Carmella now. Let's say Bianca Belair just beats Carmella clean, like really easily. Well, then by association, if Carmella can beat the crap out of Asuka for 10 minutes, and then Bianca Belair can just beat Carmella super easily, well, then Bianca Belair should just look at Asuka and she should faint because she's that far out of her league. This inconsistent style is not working. You either have these inconsistent matches or you just have things that just waste our time. We still have a Balor Edge feud that he can end. You have matches that don't, like Triple H. What happened to letting these competitors go for 20 minutes on Raw when you have 3 hours to fill? On one of his first episodes of Raw, he had Bianca Belair and Io Sky go 22 minutes on Raw. Great. Fill the time. What happened to that? The longest match last night was Cody Rhodes versus Chad Gable, or was the main event match that went about 15 minutes. And yet Cody Rhodes versus Chad Gable. You had Candice LeRae versus Piper Niven. You had so many other matches you could have stretched out and cut some of these segments. But you just decided to just let Carmella beat up Asuka for 5 minutes. It's, like I said at the beginning of this vlog, I am worried about Triple H's style of booking. I'm worried that's either too much for him or he is turning into Vince McMahon. Because there are just plenty of things happening on this show last night that reminded me of Vince. And then we forgot about the Brock Lesnar Omos match. Cool. Way to waste Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania there, Triple H. I don't know what you're doing with that, but that's inexcusable to me. That I can't defend it in the slightest. And a lot of this show, I can't defend the slightest, and that's what's worrying me. You brought back so many of these stars that don't feel like they're being used at all. What happened to Gargano? What happened to Candice LeRae? What happened to Piper Niven? What happened to Liv Morgan? What happened to all of these people that you brought back? Karrion Kross. What happened to all these people that you brought back that just feel like they're being wasted away currently? I'm worried, people. I'm really worried about this style of booking. I'm really worried about Triple H's direction because nothing on last night's Raw made me feel good about the road to WrestleMania. And I hope I'm proven wrong at WrestleMania. I hope I'm proven wrong at the Raw after WrestleMania. I'm hoping that Triple H does a hard reset after WrestleMania to try to get some new feuds going, get some better matches going, get everything going. Hopefully the bloodline ends and we can finally get 2 world champions, 1 on each brand now. A lot of stuff needs to change after WrestleMania, but I can tell you right now, after watching last night's Raw, I'm worried. And we'll see where we go. But that's going to do it for this vlog. Thank you guys so much for watching.